Why would you short today? We're going to talk about why you should not have shorted after basically 10 o'clock today on the ES, and the idea that you're making a big mistake because you're probably not looking at the big picture. Gonna break it all down right here in this video, so make sure you stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Patrick here. We're live this morning, 9:15 a.m. We're live every morning here on YouTube, but this morning we were live talking about this setup today. We had the pivot points. You know we love those pivot points, baby. We love them. Got the SPY chart going crazy. What I want to point out here is one simple idea. Is we talked about this during the live stream. People were like, oh, I want to get short. I want to get short. It's going to go lower. It's going to go lower. Don't go trying to predict where the market's going to go. Trade the action. We're traders. We're not fortune tellers. We don't need to predict where the market's going to go. We need to be able to ride the momentum, ride the trend. You know, once we're in the trend, we can look for moves. We can look for a certain level, certain resistance, things like that. But if we're not getting the setup that we want, or let's say you're just trying to get short for no reason other than the fact that you think the market's going to go lower because you're like, hey, there's a banking crisis. The market's going to go lower. I think it's going to go lower. I believe. Well, that's not a reason to get short, people. The reason to get short is when the chart tells us to get short. The chart says, hey, this is an opportunity to get short. Well, that's when we get short. We don't just get short because we have a bias. Just because we think the market's going to go down does not mean it's a good time to get short. So as you can see here on the SPY chart, this is my favorite chart. We talk about this all the time. It's a 5-minute chart. We got the VWAP. We got the pivot points. We had a pivot point right there at the 387 area at open. We go above the pivot points. We were kind of chopping around here at the pivots. Once we got back above the pivots, it was kind of funny because I was like, hey, if we put in a lower high here, I might be interested in a short. But the problem was we had the VWAP there. We had the pivot point there. So there really was no reason to get short there until what? Until we got below the pivot and started to kind of show weakness. We had the support here at this level. So again, it's like if I'm shorting here at the 88s, you know, I don't have much. I don't have I wouldn't say like a big target to the downside because we know we kind of double bottomed off of that 87, 80, 86 level there, a little bit double bottom there. And at that point, I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, if we're holding all that support, well, there's definitely no reason I'm going to get short, right? Like there's just no reason to get short until I see a reason to get short. And right now, there's no reason to get short. So as we see this big pop up, we had some news, a lot of stuff going on today with the market. And you can see on the 15-minute chart, we had that 70 pivot point was our kind of goal area. And look where we're at right now, 71.50. So we hit that pivot point on the ES beautifully. Again, this is the 15-minute chart. We're pushing up, we're breaking. So we were bouncing around this area. Once we got above that 22 area, that pivot there at the 18s, it was off to the races. On the 3-minute chart, look at this thing, just going higher and higher. But the key, again, pivot points. Pivot points, the VWAP on the SPY, all those things. The pivot point turned into support right here. And we got that beautiful move to the upside. I just want you guys to learn that the first thing you should do, if you're thinking about getting short, right? Like you're like, I think it's going to go lower. I'm going to short. You know, it's a time to get short. Like you think it's going to go short. Okay, that's fine. But what you want to do is make sure you zoom out. You know, look at the big picture. Look at the hourly chart. What do we do on the hourly chart? We're putting in a higher low on the hourly chart here. It's a higher low. This was the low from kind of the overnight on. Well, that was a low from Wednesday. And what are we doing? We're putting in a higher low there. So again, there's no reason to get short really here because we know that there's a lower high on the hourly chart. So I'm zooming out to the hourly chart and then I'm zooming into the smaller time frames. Okay, now I'm like, okay, you know, there's a higher low there. Okay, whatever. Let me look at the 15-minute chart. I look at the 15-minute chart. I can see there's support there. Okay, we're supporting there. Well, again, no reason for me to get short, right? Like there's no reason to get short because everything's lining up to the fact that we're putting in a higher low. We're holding this kind of trend line on the downside and we're starting to bounce back up for that double bottom setup here. So again, like what I really want you guys to see is there's no reason to get short until the market tells us to get short. And I've made this video before and I keep talking about it all the time. People keep not understanding. But really, guys, ask yourself, if we're putting in a higher low on the hourly chart, why would we get short? There's just no reason. There's no reason to get short when we're putting in that higher low. Obviously, you know, now it's a little bit different, but earlier when we're here, market was at that 19 level, we're putting in a higher low there. So it's telling us like, all right, well, I don't want to get short, right? Like that's what it's telling us. And that's exactly what we did today. We stayed out of the shorts because we saw on the hourly chart, we saw on the 15-minute chart, we saw all that stuff lining up. And again, you know, I'm like, well, I'm not going to get short because everything is pointing to the idea that's going higher. Now, obviously, in hindsight, you can sit here and be like, well, look how we should have got long there and got that move up there. In general, we had this insane move. We got above the pivot points of the 18s. We pushed all the way up to the 50s. We pulled back. I mean, there really wasn't like an amazing entry after that breakout over the pivots. We got above that 18 level. And then after that, it was just do all the way up there to the 50s. Maybe there was a little bit of an entry here at the 42s, but it was hard because we just kept grinding and grinding and grinding. You can see here on the 3-minute chart with the EMAs, with the 8 EMA, we were just grinding on that 8 EMA all the way up there to almost the 80s. So it was difficult. I would say it was difficult to get long again, like to have a convincing, like I'm going to get long. And because I think this is going to go higher and higher. You know, at this point, it's like, am I going to FOMO into the top here? Like, am I going to buy at the top? When the market is just grinding higher and higher, it does get difficult to kind of jump in long again. But if you did get that long kind of off that break off the pivot point earlier, well, then you're kind of like riding that higher. This is definitely one of those trend days that we had. You know, we get these trend days. This is not normal price action. This is definitely stuff that has to do with the news, with FRC, with the ECB and all that stuff going on. And look, again, squeezing to the upside here through the 76s, up there to the 76 now from the 70s. It just won't stop. It's just grinding higher. It's just constantly grinding higher and taking out stops, taking out shorts on the way up. So definitely a wild action day for us here in the markets. Wild action. Some wild action here in the markets. So there's that break above the 70s again. I mean, that 80s is kind of like double top area right now. But again, there's no reason to get short. You know, people were like, well, I got short at the top. I saw somebody said they tried to short 3 times. They tried to short this move 3 times. So they tried to short the top here, got squeezed. Tried to short the top here, got squeezed. And you just can't do it. Don't go shorting the trend to the upside. Remember, the market can go higher and higher without any reason other than the fact that it's going higher. Like, that's literally the reason it went higher. It just wants to go higher. It's going to go higher. Don't fight the trend. If the trend is there and the trend's telling you, hey, we're going higher, well, why are you trying to get short? It just blows my mind that anyone out there today thought that they were going to get short. And I know someone's going to comment and be like, well, I shorted and I made money. But like, if you made money short today, think about how much money you would have made long. You would have made way more money being long than trying to short the top over and over. And that's what I want you guys to get out of the mindset of. Because I know this is a very common mindset problem for new day traders, even experienced day traders, even for me. You know, I've went through this problem before where I constantly am just like, if I'm not in long and I'm not making the move up with it, then I'm just trying to look for the top. I'm constantly trying to look for the top. And I'm like, well, I think this is the top. Okay, boom, I got squeezed. Oh, this is the top. Oh, I get squeezed. Oh, this is the top. I get squeezed. You know, well, that was the top there. But the problem is, you know, if I'm constantly looking for the top here, I'm going to get squeezed over and over, end up losing money. I might be right once. I might find the top once, but that's, you know, what, 3 times trying to get short and then finally getting a top at the 4th? I mean, that's not trading. That's just gambling at that point. If you're just trying to short the top over and over, you're just gambling. So the moral of the story here is I want you to look at the big picture. Look at what's going on with the hourly chart. Is the hourly chart putting in a higher low? Are we moving up? Or where's the pivots at? Are we above the pivots? Are we above the VWAP on the SPY chart? You know, that SPY chart, I know people are like, well, why do I care about the SPY if I'm looking at the ES? For me personally, I like looking at the SPY chart because I just feel like it really kind of likes to touch those pivots very closely, very nicely. The VWAP, if I'm above the SPY VWAP, I like to stay long and things like that. That's my personal preference. Does that mean it's the best way to go about it? No. But what I've learned is that for me personally, these indicators, these setups, this way of trading works for my personality. And that's what you got to figure out. Does it work for you? Does it not work for you? That's part of trading. You have to figure out what works for you. What indicator works, what doesn't. Putting 1,000 indicators on your chart and trying to trade with 1,000 indicators is only going to cause you to have trade paralysis, where you're going to basically be like, well, you know, it looks good, but the RSI is not right. Oh, it looks good, but this is not right. Like, you're just always going to pick reasons to why to not take trade. So I would think the best thing to do is really try to keep, you know, the indicators to a minimum. Oh, look at that. Through the 84s. It's just popping like crazy right now. Up there all the way, popped all the way to the 87s right there. So still squeezing higher. It can't stop. It literally can't stop right now. Just keep squeezing. So this is a perfect example of don't try to short the top. Look at this. If you would have tried to short the top right there, again, you know, at that top right there, the 78s, you would have got squeezed. So there was a top of 78. We pushed back to 78 and we squeezed up there to 87. So again, it's like everyone that tried to short just now got squeezed once again. But the market wants to go higher, which it clearly wants to do today. Let it go higher, my friends. Let it go higher. So there it is. Hopefully this gives you guys just a little bit of like inspiration to like not try to pick the top. Don't try to pick the top. Don't try to pick the bottom. Look for the setups where, you know, if we're trying to short, we're trying to short lower highs. If we're trying to get long, we're trying to get long off of higher lows. We're not just like, oh, we're going to just buy and sell. We're looking for reasons to get long or short. Right now, the market's giving us no reason to get short. So what do? We stay long. We keep looking for opportunities, and there it is. If you guys haven't already tuned in, 9:15 a.m., we are live every morning right here on YouTube, making it happen. I'll talk to you guys later on.